Right, the parts have all come back from the ultrasonic cleaner now, and they all look pretty good actually. They've come up rather nicely, considering it's not very good quality brass. Alright, next thing we do is we're going to peg out all the bushings and the holes in the front and the back plate. So we use a bit of pegwood for that, which is a rather soft wood that deforms rather easily once it gets into holes, so it does a very good cleaning job. I'll just sharpen that up a tiny little bit on the end, then run it round a little bit of 600 paper to smooth it up. By sanding the end of the pegwood, we increase the surface area of the tip of the pegwood that will be in contact with the bushing. Alright, now we take the plate up and we'll start at the top and we'll work our way down systematically, place the pegwood into the hole and then just spin it round, pushing with reasonable pressure into it, a bit more than gentle but not hard. And then take it out and have a look at the tip. There's no marks on that, that's a clean hole. We'll try another one. We'll do the next one. That looks clean also. We'll move our way down the plate into some smaller ones now. Turn the pegwood round, take it out, have a look at it. Make sure it's clean. They've all come up pretty well in actual fact. Yeah, they look nice and clean. However, we still run down every one of them just to make sure that they're all right before we start checking the pivots and the bushings. That's in pretty good nick actually. Looks very nice and clean. Turn the plate over, do the other side. The first wheel on the time side. They're the great wheel holes. That's where the minute arbor goes. Just slowly working our way up the plate, looking each time we take it out to check and see that there's no marks on it. If there's a black line, then we'll resharpen it and go back to the same hole and redo it until it comes out clean. Well, they all look pretty good in actual fact. Alright, nothing wrong with those. Nice and clean. Alright, I'll do the front plate off camera. You don't need to see that, you know how it's done now. And then I'll come back and then we'll do the next part. Right, well I've finished the front plate now and it's come up rather nicely too. If you find this video helpful, please leave a like and don't forget to subscribe. You can see that the pegwood's clean. Put that aside. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to polish the pivots. I'll start off with a warning wheel. We'll do that pivot there and then that pivot there, avoiding the warning wheel pin at all costs. And we'll polish them on a lathe. So before we start, first thing we do is we've got to find out whether it has a groove worn into it. The best way to do that is to use your thumbnail and slowly turn the wheel in your hand while you're putting your thumbnail backwards and forwards across it, and you'll definitely feel if there's a groove in the pivot. That one's alright. Okay, the other end now. Line it up once again, thumbnail on it. Turn the wheel slowly and run your fingernail along the pivot. And that's nice and smooth. Alright, now there's two ways we can do this. If the pivots are nice and smooth and you haven't got a lathe, then this is how you can do it. I have a video on this somewhere, I'm not sure where, but I might have to make another one. What I have here is a very simple way to polish pivots. It's a popsicle stick with a bit of 2000 grit sandpaper on it. It's been cut in half. It's got a little bit of masking tape there to act as a hinge. And what you do with it, you bend it over and you put it on either side, the top and the bottom of the pivot, and hold it in your hand like that. Medium pressure, and then just spin the wheel backwards and forwards. In this instance, being careful not to catch the warning wheel pin, but run it backwards and forwards, and then you can slowly pull the wheel out of the popsicle stick. That's looking all right. We'll give it another go. Once again, pop it into the center so that it's only on the pivot, not on the arbor. And then slowly turn the wheel. All right, so that's how you can do it if you haven't got a lathe. If you have got a lathe, I'm about to show you how to do it on a lathe. First up, these are the tools you'll need. A pin vise, a fine India stone, put that back into its case, an ultra fine Degusset stone, which is man-made synthetic ruby. It has a very, very fine grain. We use that after we've used the India stone. And next we have a burnisher. And a burnisher is simply a piece of steel that's harder than the piece of steel that you're going to burnish. So it actually smooths it off, and not only that, it also work hardens it. What we're doing is we're heading towards glass hard. That's a condition we're working towards when we're burnishing a pivot. Right, well, over to the lathe now. All right, we're over at the lathe now. The first thing we'll do, we'll take up our pin vise and we'll put our wheel into it. Screw the pin vise down, tighten it up, because we don't want the wheel to move when it's in the chuck. Put the pin vise into the chuck and tighten the chuck down. Now, before we start to polish the pivot, we need to check and make sure that the pivot is running true. So what I've done here is I've brought a dead center up, I've tightened it down. You'll notice that it's just back behind the pivot, but pretty close so we can see what's happening. I'll turn the lathe on and you have a look and see that's running pretty true. Tiny little bit of wobble there. That amount is normally due to the wheel being in the pin vise. They're never exactly centered. All right, turn the lathe off again. Move the dead center back. Turn the lathe on. And first, we'll start off with our India stone. And this is how it's used. You place the India stone under the pivot with light pressure and then move the stone forwards and backwards. Remembering we're not trying to remove material, we're just polishing it. Though in actual fact polishing it removes a microscopic amount of material, but this pivot is in good shape. It doesn't need much attention. Keep your lathe running low. I think this is about 200 revs or just under 150 revs. Right, we're ready for the second polishing stone now, the Degusset stone. Same thing, up underneath the pivot, slowly move it up and down. In this instance, being very careful of the pin on the warning wheel. We don't want to bend that or snap it off. And it doesn't take very much because this pivot is in pretty good condition. Here you can see me polishing the pivot using the Degusset stone. Now we're going to use our burnisher. Use the same way, light pressure, just on the pivot. Move the burnisher up and down. Very light pressure. Smoothly, backwards and forwards, sideways. And finally, burnishing the pivot. Alright, turn the lathe off. We'll remove the pin vise with the wheel in it. Then we'll have a look at it. You're not going to see exactly what it looks like here, but that is very, very shiny and it's come up very well.